All right, good morning, men and women. I'm sorry I'm not here on the first day when we're trying a new math concept, but I think you're going to be okay. We'll just watch this video, and I had a chance to teach it to you a little bit yesterday before we left. Confidence is the key, and it's a straight substitution, so you should be able to do this just fine. Anyhow, on my left, or on the left of the screen that you see here is a Cartesian plane. We did that vocab yesterday. You can see the X and the Y axes are labeled. And remember that when we have a set of ordered pairs, the first value is always going to be an X, and the second value is always going to be the Y. So the next step in doing this, because we plotted a few points today, and many of you said, Mr. Ross, this is not a new concept, and we have this. So what we're going to do now is use something called a T-chart to create lines based off an equation. So a T-chart is simply a chart like that gives you some values that it wants you to use on your graph. They usually pick small values because it's easier to fit on your graph. And you see my graph only goes to 10 in any direction here. So this is the first part, but what you also need to make this work is an actual equation of a line. So in this case, I'm going to say my line, the line that we're going to make out of dots, is shown by the equation x plus 2. This is a straight substitution exercise. What we are truly doing is we're going to take each value of x right here that is given in your chart, and we're going to substitute it into the equation one at a time. So let's try it. The first thing we're going to do is to take this 0, this x value of 0, substitute it in for this x, and what we're going to have is 0 plus 2, and now our y value would be equal to 2. That worked out well, so what we're going to do is we're going to try it, and we're going to put this 1 value in. So if I put 1 in that x, and then I add 2, I know my new value will be 3. And you keep going. I put the 2 all the way into the x. That makes that 2 plus 2, and that makes it 4. Now you could do that 2 more times to finish off your chart, but you will start to see a pattern emerge. And the reason a pattern emerges is because this is a linear system. It is going to make a line. So I'm sure as you see 2, 3, 4, you realize that these are just consecutive numbers. And you could go ahead and put 5 and 6 without doing any more work. Not that what we were doing, that substitution, was very hard. Anyhow, now we have to know how to read this stuff. And this chart is really just 5 sets of ordered pairs. So the first point is actually going to be 0, 2. So if we were to graph that first point, 0 is right there, and then we go up 2, our first point is right there. My smartboard's off just a little bit. My next one would be over to the right 1 and up 3, so my next dot would be right there. My next, so that's those 2 done. When I do 2, 4, I move over 2 and up 4, so there's that one. When I do 3, 5, I'll go over to the right 3 and up 5. And lastly, over 4, up 6. And what you'll see is that is the line we've just created. In order to not confuse it with other lines, we actually write the equation of the line, and now we know that y equals x plus 2 belongs on that graph, and that's the line that shows it right there. So I'm hoping you're saying, okay, I can get this. It's just new. It'll be brand new stuff, and I love new stuff when I'm working with you. It makes you think a little bit. So I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to put a new equation of a line up there. So I'll start with my T-chart. It doesn't matter what numbers I use, but I try to keep them small because I want them to fit on my graph. Again, the first value is always going to be the x, and the second column in the chart is always going to be the y. And all that's missing now is an equation of a line. An equation of a line always starts y equals something. In this case, I'm going to actually have it 3x minus 2. And actually, maybe when we're just starting, I'm going to do 3x plus 2. That'll be a little bit easier. So remember that all we're doing is substituting each of these values for x into the line. So we're going to start by taking this negative 2 and putting it right there. And what that really means, if you're thinking about it, it means 3 times negative 2 plus 2. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 plus 2. And negative 6 plus 2 is going to be negative 4. You do not have to show your work. This is mental math, or use your calculator while you're doing it. You don't have to show all your work. We are just working with this t-chart. So when I do the next one, the next value I'm going to do is this negative 1. I put it where the x is, and it becomes 3 times negative 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. I add 2. That's going to give me negative 1. I'll do one more. This is really bad. There should not be a negative by 0. I can't believe I did that. My apologies. But anyhow, I'm going to now substitute 0 in for the x. It'll be 3 times 0, which is 0. Then I'm going to add 2, and that'll make this 2. Now, if I'm starting to look for a pattern down this right-hand side, if I don't want to do this 2 more times, and I encourage you to start to look for the pattern, I can see that from negative 4 to negative 1, or from negative 1 to 2, it's actually increasing by a value of 3. So knowing that, I can now guess or make a really good assumption as what my next number is going to be. It's going to be 5 more than, or 3 more than 2. That's going to make it 5. And the next one as well is going to be 3 greater, because it's a linear system and they all follow a pattern. This one will be 8. So now we go to graph it. Just remember, these become ordered pairs with the comma in the middle. And we just have to remember how to graph it. So our first, I'll use a different color. My first number is negative 2, so that goes to here, and negative 4, which would put me right there. My next number is negative 1, negative 1, which puts me there. My next one is 0, 2. Looks like I'm sharing a spot. The next one is 1, 5. And the last one is over 2, up 8. You would use your ruler. I don't have a ruler big enough. And if you did it properly, you will get a straight line. If you get anything other than a straight line, you've put your point in the wrong spot, or you've made a calculation error, because all of these will make lines. And I'm going to do one last one here for you, but basically this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put a negative in the line, but since it's just substitution, and we all know how to do our negatives and positives when we're multiplying, it shouldn't be a problem at all. I'll make my equation line y equals negative 2x plus 1. Pick my values. Again, I will usually determine the values for you. And sometimes I'll just do it just to keep you out of the way of the other graphs. So while I do that, I'll make all of these negatives, just so you're put over farther to the left. So here we go. If I take 0 and I put it into there, it's going to be negative 2 times 0, which will still be 0, plus 1 is 1. If I take negative 1 and substitute it in there, I'll have negative 2 times negative 1. Negative times a negative is a positive, which will give us 2, plus 1 is 3. If I put negative 2 into that equation, it's negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Add 1 gives me 5. Again, when you start to look at it, you start to see, hey, there's a pattern emerging. It keeps getting bigger by 2. You can go ahead and finish off the rest of the chart. Now remember, these are all ordered pairs. And you're off to the races. And we got to graph them. So the first one is 0, 1. I'll try to use a new color like green. 0, 1 would be right there. Negative 1, 3 would be here. Negative 2, 5 is there. Negative 3, 7 is there. And lastly, negative 4, 9, just fitting on my graph, is there. Using a ruler, you would draw a line and you would label it so you remember which one it is. Y equals negative 2x plus 1. It is new, but it is not outside the reach of all of you kids. You can do this. Take your time, ask lots of questions, and if you need help, please go get it. It is simple substitution. Maybe some of the negatives might mess you up a little bit. You know, you're also welcome to use calculators. Good luck, and we'll take a look at this on Thursday.